Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 13 of The Great Pretender, and yeah, I couldn't wait. I watched a few days ago, and I was like, no, I can't wait. I need to know what happens next, and once again, I could have recorded something else tonight, but I was like, no, I'm going to watch The Great Pretender episode 13 because The Snow of London has been really good so far. I'm a big sucker for romance, surprising no one, and Cynthia and Thomas's little relationship that we know has gone awry has captivated my mind. So I need to know what happens between them to make them fall apart, because they clearly are thinking about bringing him back into the fold. So how do we do that? What is Cynthia's backstory with him? How does Coleman really get involved in it? He has a bigger part to play, I feel. And then how are they going to use that to take him down? So that's the big question, right? But man, this case has been really, really fun. I like this case for a lot of reasons. The humor has been hilarious. The last episode where Makoto and Laurent are just both sitting on the couch and being like, yes, we know the ways of women. And I'm like, you two know nothing about women. Well, maybe Laurent does. Laurent probably knows his way with the ladies, but Makoto, no. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what this episode is going to give us and to see how it goes. So I want to give a quick shout out before we start, though, to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon. Thank you so much, patrons, for helping to support me in watching these shows and talk about anime and manga and Danmai, because I really enjoy doing it. So our philanthropy tier are the individuals who go above and beyond to help support me each month. And this month we have the following that are listed here. We have Edgar, we have Dana, we have Anime Annie, we have Tyrone, we have Larry Manning, we also have Kenny, and we have Shimoyama, we have Arjo, and then on top of that, we also have Truck. So thank you all so much for everything that you do. I really, really appreciate it. And it helps me to keep on watching these shows and talking about them and just supporting in the ways that you really are gracious. So thank you guys so much for your kindness. I appreciate it so much. And as always, all of my love. So yeah, let's do it. Let's see what happens this episode. I've really liked this case so far, and it's been kind of addicting. I'm trying not to binge, but I just feel like I need to watch ahead because why not, right? Why not? You all understand. So we are going to start episode 13 of The Great Pretender and see what happens. And we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do this, y'all. Yeah. I love Makoto. I love him in this. He's such a matchmaker. Oh. So yeah, y'all. I really like this case a lot. It's gone by very quickly. There haven't been anything. Here's the thing about this case. It's not anything worth like an insane 3-hour discussion, but it's a short, concise, succinct, tightly woven narrative, and it's Cynthia's character development. We get to see her in the past, we get to see her and Thomas, and how their love kind of blossomed. And here, what I really like is that Thomas, like, he just became greedy. And it was like the dark side of him. He wanted to make money to like give her a better life, and she was like, but I like you, I don't need the money. And so it's like how much they've changed, right? Where he kind of just gave it all up, and she's been working her way up, getting the money. I feel like she's kind of, tried to fill in the void that he left, and kind of has become sort of like him in a way. But then we have Chris, who she gave the money to, so it's a little bit different. But they are kind of like, I don't think Thomas knows they're kind of like a Robin Hood group where they keep millions, sure, but they're scamming from rotten people, and they're giving back to people like Chris. So interesting. But in the tin, she kept all this time that picture of the ring they drew. I was thinking he was gonna sketch a ring to give her, and they didn't show us, and then it comes back in the end. I'm like, good, that just come full circle. But I like that Thomas isn't a horrible person. I'm glad that he left on his own terms. And think about him taking the paintings back. So good. So good. So let's just walk through this episode. Again, just a really tight, concise episode from top to bottom. Of course, Makoto gets sent in. I like that the trend is like Makoto gets sent in to go like fish people out, and Laurent's like, he can handle it. Right? He's fine. he can handle it. If he gets roughed up a little bit, it's okay. And Makoto's like, I've had about enough of this, if I'm being honest. So yeah, Snow of London Part 3. And we cut back to the fact that Makoto's like, my wallet saved me. I was able to pay those guys off. And Cynthia, this entire time, has done nothing but drink because she's just trying not to think. She's trying to keep in good spirits and not think about Thomas, because that's clearly a sore subject. And we don't know exactly how many years have passed. Coleman doesn't look insanely young in the flashback, so it's not been an insane amount of time, but enough time has passed that Cynthia feels like this is just reopening a new wound. And you can see on the back there, like, there's the wine holder, there's the 2 giant jugs of wine, and then there's like 5 bottles back there. Like, girl is prepared to drink all week to try to keep herself steady when Thomas is involved. Because she says long ago he was a painter, yes. But she still harbors those feelings for him, right? And it's so interesting to see. She's like, why is a normal painter 2 million pounds in debt? And she's like, 2 million? So she seems like, it seems like Cynthia's like, why is he that far in debt? And we come to find out it's because he took the pictures back. He bought the paintings back. Now, how he did that, with what collateral, we're not sure, but he's borrowing money and running. And like Makoto's like, go find him yourself. I'm not doing it anymore. And she's like, wait, no, help me out. And he's like, wasn't this for you anyway, Edamame? And he's like, I haven't eaten anything since my wallet was taken. And he goes to open the tin up, but she's like, no, those are mine. It's expired. I like, she says, you can't have this, it's expired. Like no, technically it's been long enough. If there were food in there, it would have expired, but it's really the picture of the ring. Now, why she had it in the fridge? I'm not sure. And he's like, please get us a pizza instead. So we cut back to the past with what they're going to do on their big break. Again, I love how this series animates lighting, like all the geometric shapes of light around something. It's very pretty. And the fact that out of all of his paintings, he sold everything except the ones of her. Those are the ones that he kept for himself. I love that. And she's like, I'm going to work hard at my auditions. You work at selling your paintings. And then we'll be together. Like, it was so simple, right? It was so simple. All they needed was each other. Money wasn't any figure. But he, of course, he wants to give her good things and provide for her. And she's like, we'll make it work. It'll be fine. And that's when they run into Coleman. And really, honestly, yeah, Coleman kind of screwed this whole thing up. It also adds like just a layer of slime to Coleman's character, in that part of the reason he's had all this money is because he's been able to, like, he found someone that could forge counterfeits of these lost paintings. And so he tells them, he said, you have natural gift for talent for counterfeits. And Cynthia seems like she instantly is like, this seems rather sketchy. He says, in this world, as paintings get traded around, some of them get lost. And by some of them get lost, he means the mafia hides some of them, and then, yeah, some of them burn up. But he says, some are also cataloged, but may not even exist anymore. Lots of work of art are like this. You can revive them to the modern era. And Cynthia's like, that is fraud. That's like instantly a bad thing. Like, that's not creating art. It's just creating a copy and selling it to people saying that it's real. And he's like, oh, no, they're not counterfeits. They're the real ones. Like, if I appraise them, counterfeits become real works. And so that opens up a whole can of worms. Like, who else has Coleman used over the years to make counterfeits? What other shady deals has Coleman done to make money for himself? Like all this entire scene paints is that Coleman is not a great person, and he's been using people for a long time. And Cynthia sees right through it. She's like, we're gonna get caught. And he's like, no one can certify that it's a fake. Like, Coleman's very convinced, but I do think Cynthia was correct that if he had kept on the contract and hadn't ran, I think Coleman would have kept using him until he could use him no longer, and then he would have tossed him. The devil's proof. If a famous, mysterious painting is found, the art world gets excited, and clients are thrilled, and I'll gain a profit. And she's like, well, what if the real one is found somewhere? And he's like, you're just trying to rain on my parade. And he's like, draw 10 paintings, and that's all you have to do. And Cynthia's like, And you can tell that it's a point of pride for Thomas. Like, Thomas wants to be recognized. He wants his work to get the praise it deserves, but he also wants to provide for Cynthia. So it's like a culmination of things that lead him to do it. And I like that we instantly go from them together all the time to the moment he starts painting, she's in the coffee shop by herself. Like, it's like that instant disconnect, that instant wall comes between them. And so he paints, of course, the first one he does is one called Nostalgia. And like paints all the brush strokes. And then we see her watching him, but he's so engrossed in his work, and then she leaves. She doesn't stick around. It's not like when he was painting and she admired him, so she stuck around. Here she's like, you're just forging someone else's work. So I'm not going to stick around. And that's so sad, right? That we see him like painting all that, and then she just leaves him. But she doesn't leave him. He gets all the work done on the painting. And then we see like Coleman, and we see in the press Nostalgia. It's like being, what it reminded me of are ghostwriters. If you've never heard of what a ghostwriter is, they are someone that writes for an author and they aren't recognized. So like presidents have ghostwriters. Sometimes if like Tom Clancy or James Patterson's the one I think of. James Patterson does have a ghostwriter for them that writes a lot of their novels, but James Patterson gets the credit, but the ghostwriter will get a like stipend or a profit of it or a percentage of the profits. So yeah, it's like, I don't know if I could be a ghostwriter. I asked my students one time in a class, I'm like, could you be a ghostwriter? And a lot of students were like, oh yeah, sure. I'm like, but if I'm putting that time and effort into somebody else's writing and their name's on it, I don't know, hashtag Taurus life. I'm like, I kind of would want credit for it. But maybe if you paid me enough, I could ignore that. Again, that's kind of what this is. It's like ghostwriting, but it's bigger than that, right? Because at least a ghostwriter, half the time people understand that ghostwriting exists. They know a person is ghostwriting for someone. It's kind of like an acknowledged thing. Here, it is a counterfeit because they're passing it off as an authentic piece of work from someone else. It's passing it off as someone else's work that is not aware that it's being passed off. Like a ghostwriter knows someone else is writing for them, and that person knows they're not getting credit. Here, the person that created the actual painting had no consent, and there's still no credit. So it's kind of like a bad situation. And I like that Cynthia, she's like torn up about it and tells Chris at the diner, and Chris brings out the toffees, the Farrah toffee. And they share it, and they just like, it's like a way of calming down, right? And so you kind of add the drawing of the ring on top of the toffees that calmed her down. And that's like Cynthia's go-to, her comfort food. And then we have like the 50-pound checks. And he gives her the money. He's like, look, we got our first deposit. Isn't this great? And she's like, I don't like this. And so then, yeah, we get the famous painting, the teacher that is shown there. And he gets a studio for Thomas to start painting in. And of course, Thomas, who's been living in like a shack apartment this whole time, he sees this and thinks it's absolutely wonderful and thinks it's great. And he says, this will work. I'll be able to paint a lot in here. And so then Siesta is the next painting there. And of course, Cynthia doesn't like this because she sees the writing on the wall. She's like, this guy's just using you for these 10 paintings and he's going to throw you into the streets. She's like, no, the money is only going to be temporary and then it's going to be gone again. What's going to be left afterwards? And she's just not happy about it. And so we see like all the paintings that he kept and they're all kind of shoved there in a corner in the closet. That's what gets her. The paintings of her that he loved are shoved in a closet. Like the things that really mattered, he's just pushed off to the side. And she's like, I don't blame Cynthia for being upset because she's like, this isn't good. This isn't good work. And then for Coleman to tell him, for Coleman to say, quit staring at her ass, I'm like, he loved her. Like he loves her. And you think that that she's just some kind of just piece of meat to him. I'm like, take all his money. That's how I would feel about Coleman. I'm like, take all his money at this point. I was trying to feel sympathetic towards him last episode. That failed. Now I'm like, nope, he's got to go. Take his money and go, Thomas. And he says, what you should be doing is putting your art to a canvas. And then it's the classic story, tale as old as time. He makes all these promises. He gets him the nice suit. He gets some money. He gets a haircut, gets his ears pierced, gets the nice restaurant. I feel like the moment he told Cynthia that James told me about this place, that she was like, I'm over it. And he's like, he's still giving me money, so I'm thankful, even though he's asking me to repaint the paintings. And she's like, I'm just not hungry. And he says, we haven't met in a while. So they've been apart, right? And then he's like, you don't want canned beans again, do you? And she's like, I was fine with the beans. She's like, how long are you going to work for Coleman? Like, this is... And he says this again. She's like, yeah. And he's got 6 more for their contract. She's like, but then she brings up a really good point. I didn't even realize this. There is no contract. It's a verbal promise. So she's like, there's nothing legal about this. Of course Coleman didn't make them a contract. I thought he like had it in writing, but no. She's like, do you realize how sketch this is? There is no legal contract. There is nothing saying he can't pull the rug under you and demand his money back. And if you try to argue with him, he'll say that you're a counterfeit painter and that you've rigged it. Like, she's like, this is a terrible situation to be in. You have nothing tying you down or promising you anything. She's like, this man could take you for everything you have and is using you. She's like, this isn't right. He'll conveniently throw you away. And he's like, the copying work is fun. He's like, and I'm learning. And I realized that we all have things we're suited for. And I think that's what makes her really sad, is that Coleman not only is taking advantage of him, not only is doing it in a shady, illegal way, but he's told Thomas that all he's good for is copying. And she's like, no, you're much better than that. But that's what Coleman's convinced him. He's like, I'm just suited for copying. And she's like, that's not true. And he's like, James recognizes my work. We're both using each other. All he wants is to make a profit. She's like, it's not the same. And I don't think Thomas is an idiot, but he's just blinded by everything in front of him. And he's like, how many years do I have to wait while eating canned beans? And that's the artist's life, man. You know, being an artist is not glamorous. It is not good, but she's the point Cynthia tries to get at is she's like, I know that you're sad because you're not making a lot of money, but she's like, but I don't care about the money. It's not about that, which is so funny because she's like a multimillionaire now. Yeah. They have the typical argument, right? They have the big dramatic argument about how he can't take that. And he's like, why aren't you happy with my success? And she's like, you haven't succeeded. She's like, this wasn't your goal. Your goal was to sell your own paintings. You were just making counterfeits for them. You're not getting recognized for them. You're not succeeding like the way that you told her that would be. He's like, he's going to use you and throw you away. And Thomas seems like he's fine with it. And then he says, whatever I paint, there's no point if it doesn't sell. And she's like, but that's not why you started painting. She's like, that's not the mindset of a painter. And then he says, don't get in my way. And the moment he says that, she's like, oh, okay, we're done then. And I give Cynthia a lot of props because I think I talk the talk. If I was in a relationship and that was said, I'd walk away. I'd be like, you're not the person I fell in love with. Bye. And so I honestly would act the same way Cynthia did. And it sucks because Cynthia clearly likes him. And she's like, but he's not the person that she started dating and falling in love with. And then she just gets up and walks away. And I don't blame her. She's like, nope. She's like, and I'm done. And just left him from there. And you could tell he's not happy about it, but... And so then we go down to the docks, in the shipyard. And that's where Thomas is working now. And they call him an old man. So I don't know how old he is. Is he in his 40s? Are Cynthia and him in their 40s? Has it been like 20 years? Really? Because he does seem like he seems like he's in his late 30s, if anything. But I'm like, I'm in my 30s. So them calling them old man is like, oh, well now. So Thomas Meyer. But like his hair's grown out. And like he's got facial hair and everything. And I love that Makoto's like, I did not come to be in a knife fight. So yeah, so Makoto tries to enlist them all to help out with this con. Seems to work. And they're going to pay back everyone's debt. And Thomas is like, what the hell? We're going to sell organs? And Makoto's like, no. And then what does Makoto say? He says, it's not like that. Just shut up and nod. And he says, I'll explain later. First, can you meet with that drunk lady? Like calling her the drunk lady. And he's like, what? And then, of course, he puts on the suit and is taken right there in front of Cynthia. And she's wearing the same earrings. She's wearing the same kind of jewelry she was when they last saw each other. Uh-huh. And then, but she's so different. Like seeing her, you really can tell, like seeing her fiery and young earlier on in this case, and then seeing her now, like how much she's matured and how different she is, but she still loves him. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. And of course, he's like seeing a ghost, right? And she tells him to take a seat at the same table they were at before. Ooh. So we talk about this moment of Abigail and Coleman at trying to track down Laurent. Laurent's having the time of his life. Makoto's getting held at knife point, getting beaten up, having to deal with street thugs, and trying to be matchmaker. Makoto's trying to do everything. Laurent is just walking around looking like Urahara from Bleach, having a fantastic day at the Louvre. Like that, like Laurent is just having the time of his life, doing nothing. Makoto's working his ass off. But to be fair, this con was really inspired by Makoto because of his mess up. So, and to be fair, Laurent was like, I'll stay out of your hair. You don't want me around. I'll be out of your hair just fine. So it's really what Makoto wanted. It's just absolutely hilarious because Laurent just looks like he's just having the time of his life. But yeah, there's him and Kim in the museum. Like he's got like 6 layers on. What the hell? And then him meeting with Kudo. And they ask if he's an art dealer. And she's like, yes, he works in the black market. Which is not entirely untrue. He's like, really? She's like, he buys art and sells them to the mafia. Which he sold stuff to the mafia before. So again, not untrue. And so Abigail says they're trash who only care about property value. So she sells it pretty well. She's like, he just buys the expensive stuff to give to the mafia. They pay exorbitant amounts of money because they just want something that they can say is valuable, but they don't get why it's valuable. And Coleman knows that all too well. He's like, yes. He's like, many of the lost works are owned and stashed away by that lot. He's like, that's why he had the counterfeits, because some of the lost works are just in some gallery of a mob member. And he's like, when I think of those assholes playing around with the art. Yeah. And of course we cut back to Laurent when we say those assholes. Like Abby's just having a fun time trash talking Laurent. These fiends are endless no matter how many you crush. And Abby says, in that respect, you are spectacular. And so she like sucks up, like she kisses ass hardcore in the scene. I'm surprised the blonde secretary is not more suspicious. I feel like she's suspicious in this episode, but maybe she's just realizing that Abby's playing the game, or maybe pities Abby because she doesn't think. When he did this motion though, I was like, is he really going to ask her to sit on his lap? He does. But again, Abigail's worked with Cassano, so she knows what it's like to work with sleazy people. And she sits there on his leg. Mm-hmm. And the blonde woman's like, this could be a harassment lawsuit, but you seem like you've got this under control. And yeah, him with the shoulder, ugh. Him saying being with a supple youngster once in a while. I never want to hear anyone over the age of 30 say the phrase supple youngster again. Ugh. No, thank you. That's gross. Get out of here. Nobody wants to hear that from you. But yeah. And then Abigail's like, let's reclaim Snow of London no matter what. Like, no matter what the cost. Wink, wink. And then, yeah. So yeah, let's say I paint this copy. Who will you sell it to? And she says to Coleman. Uh-huh. Whatever I paint, there's no point if it doesn't sell. But his thing is, what she doesn't realize that he tells Makoto later is that he stopped painting after he got the counterfeit paintings back because he wasn't inspired and because he feels like he did her wrong, right? He feels like he did her wrong. So now he's like, I, quit painting because of what you said and it got to me. And now you want me to paint a counterfeit painting to get back at him. He's like, it feels to him a little hypocritical. And he says, you've changed. And she said, you changed first. But she's not really changed. She's just put on an act. It's crazy. He's like, yet you've gone into debt and are toiling away at work. And you can tell he feels kind of embarrassed. And he's like, I haven't held a brush in a while. I can't paint like I used to. And your target is too foul. And then he says it's not that easy. Like, there's emotional baggage there, too. And he says that it's in the past. And he said that you wanted to be a stage actress. And at first I was like, well, she technically kind of is an actress. She's been acting for a while. But then he says, now you're a swindler. So yeah, there is a difference there. And that makes her, like, she doesn't frown or anything. But he says it's a joke and leaves her. I love that parallel that both times, in both situations, we have the wine glasses full for either of them. The person that leaves doesn't drink the wine. And in both scenarios, the person that's still at the table, we don't get to see their faces. I'm like, it's great. It's great. I really like it. And she says, what a waste. Yeah, what a waste of talent. So Laurent, like, I thought they were going to try to, like, kidnap Laurent. I was like, really? Is that where we're going with this? But they try to, like, schmooze him. And Laurent is so clever and so persuasive. He tells them, just like they did Sam back in the other case, he's like, oh yeah, we have like an underground auction. It's very exclusive. Only a few people can come. We have our own appraiser. I'm like, is it going to be Kudo? Or is it going to be Makoto? Makoto might be the appraiser. Maybe. But yeah, I love that they just try to schmooze Coleman, and of course, because he's a greedy son of a bitch, she falls like right into it, and it's like, what? A secret auction? What are you talking about? Laurent's like, you bitches are all the same. And then I love that he kind of like does a little dig at Abigail. He's like, what a nice worker you have, and I'm sure it's all in Abigail's mind and body, not to like flip him the bird. But yeah, Laurent reels Coleman in by saying that they have their own appraiser, and of course, Coleman, who's touted as the best appraiser, is like, well, you mean you have an appraiser for the mob's art? Well, they couldn't be nearly as good as me. I love how easily Laurent hooks him into this. He's like, I'm suspicious about several of the works that you found in the past. And that gets Coleman's attention, but he shrugs it off pretty quickly. And Laurent's like, well, that's fine. He's like, at least Snow of London seems real. He's like, I'm sure you won't, but will you sell it to the mafia? And he's like, that's the idea. And so, yeah, he's like, I'll send you an invite. And Coleman calls him a parasite, which I'm sure Abigail on the inside is like, you're not wrong. And so we go back to where Thomas is staying. I love the little tiny details of like the frost on the windows. And inside the building, you see Makoto's breath. Like, there clearly is an outside, but inside you can still see Makoto's breath because there's no heat in there. It's that cold. Just showing kind of like the situation. And at first I was wondering if Makoto was lying or telling the truth. If Cynthia really was feeling down or if he was making it up. But Makoto's pretty genuine about this sort of thing. So I think he's telling the truth. He said, she's obsessed with your skills, which is true. She said, no one else can paint it, which is true. He's like, I don't know what happened, but could you help her? And I like that Thomas opens the door up for him and brings him inside and shows him his apartment. And he has those 3 paintings, the old ones. I like the idea that she was simple and didn't use much makeup, which is a nice little reference back to Sam, who was saying she used too much makeup back during the Singapore Sky case. And that's all, like, he literally has a bed that's like ransacked, a barely there dresser, and her paintings along with the counterfeits. And he's like, all she does is drink lately. Maybe it's menopause. I was like, or maybe it's heartbreak, you know? And Thomas says he's like that too. And then he doesn't want... I like that Makoto tries to pry a little bit, and he's like, there's nothing between us and Cynthia. And so he asked how he got into so much debt, and he said that he was doing research for the counterfeits, and he saw a kid practicing on the sketch, and it was of the counterfeit that he did. And then he got scared. Scared of like what he had done and the trajectory it was having. And then, God, that anguish, they animate that anguish on his face so well. Like that sadness on his face, you feel that. It felt real. I was like, damn. And then he left. He just leaves. And then, of course, Coleman gets pissed. But he took the paintings, the 3 that he did. He never did the 4th one. He's like, it was my mess. And so, man, when he says it was my mess, that relates to Makoto so well, right? Because Makoto's like, well, damn it. I'm in this fiasco because of my mess. You are too. So Makoto clearly instantly has like, he has an affinity for Thomas and wants to help him. And Thomas like, why would I go into debt? I went into debt over these counterfeits. Why would making more than getting out of debt, like that seems so hypocritical. And that's when Makoto pulls out the 10. He's like, she's kept it with her all this time. And then him opening it up. And we don't see his initial reaction, but we see the ring that he draws. I can't give you a real one yet. She says, what do you mean? This one is a real one. Oh, that just like melts my heart. It's like, it's so cliche and beautiful, but it's so good. And it's just like hammy and cheesy and wonderful. It's like, they're in love, damn it. And yeah, she was blushing from that moment. Now she's blushing because of all the wine she's drinking. And it's like, Cynthia hasn't changed since you broke up. She's been waiting for you to come get her. I like Makoto like asked Thomas to be like a white knight dashing in. Makoto's like, just go in and save your lady. Do it. I love that. I love Makoto so eager about it. And Thomas says it's too late. And Makoto's like, no, she's really stubborn. Like, she's really not changed. And she's making her move now because you're not helping her. So, like, you need to settle things with Coleman before anything can move forward. He's the one who technically, Coleman is the one that broke you two apart. You need to settle it between them to see if you can get back together or not. But Cynthia can't do it alone. And it's not too late. It's your turn to act. Oh, I love it. I love it. If you can bring this to a close, then maybe she can go back to her true self. To the old Cynthia. I love it. And then they take him back to the place, the original apartment. And my theory is I want her to get like on the bed with him with the ring like before. I just want that. Also, I'd really love it if she was like, also, I'm like a millionaire. So she's like, I can be the breadwinner in here. You're fine. You can paint. It's all good. You can paint just for funsies. I'm financially secure. I really want her to be like that. Be like, don't worry. I've got you covered. And then he says he's tried to copy Montoya, but it never went well. Good. Luckily, the Snow of London is a very tiny painting. So it should be fine, right? Should be fine. Although, thinking about it, a bigger painting might be easier to counterfeit because it's large and it has big, broader brush strokes that might be more difficult to determine if they're counterfeit or not. A smaller painting has much more finer details that might be easier to trace as counterfeit. So maybe that's not easier that it's a small painting. Maybe it's not. But he helps. I like Makoto asks if he can help with anything. He's like, hey, can I help with anything? And he's just in the zone already. And Makoto's like, okay, never mind. You've got this. I'll leave you alone. I'll leave you to it. It's fun. But yeah, and then he's left to do the painting. And you see it slowly building up over and over again. And he starts to tie his hair back, gets back in the mood, has the paint all over him. He's got all the can of beans and everything. And then we see Cynthia and them visiting him. And he's doing his hardest to try to do this for Cynthia. Oh. And then he like passes out on his bed with like a soda and an energy packet and pizza. And Makoto's like, well, he's alive. And we see his room is just trashed, right? It's so dirty we may need a professional. But then she sees the painting. And it looks pretty close. It looks pretty damn close. I mean, the purple on the one is maybe a little bit more vibrant, but it's pretty damn close. And she's like, isn't that obvious? He's not your average man. And Makoto says this part here. He's like, hey, this guy put everything into this. I know we're doing a swindling job and we're going to con Coleman out of all this money. Makoto's like, but you don't need to con Thomas out of all the hard work he's put into this. He used to get his own intuition back. Thomas did this work. His efforts aren't for money. They're for you. So he's like, you need to accept his feelings and talk to him when this is all over. And be like, you guys are still like you were back then. Makoto just being Cupid. I love it. I'm like, good on you, Makoto. Trying to help everybody get back together. Meanwhile, Laurent is like, can you be Cupid for us? And Makoto's like, I hate you. So, I really, really like this episode an awful lot. This episode was great. And I am very eager to see the next episode. I don't know if the next episode is going to be the last for this arc, or if it would go on to a part 5 like Singapore Sky did, but I guess we'll find out. So what I'm curious for is your all thoughts down below. What you all thought of this episode about Thomas, about Cynthia, about poor Makoto having to pull triple duty, being con man, matchmaker, and also voice of reason. And then what y'all thought about the episode in general. So I hope y'all enjoyed this comment and this reaction. But yeah, I hope you also have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yes, y'all, I'll be back next week with episode 14 of The Great Pretender. Bye.